I had to pinch myself when President Rosenberg emailed asking me to be the commencement speaker this year. My first reaction was, this must be fake news. Someone has hacked President Rosenberg's email. But I decided to reply anyway, and to my surprise, it really was President Rosenberg on the other end. My next thought was, wow, the standards of Macalester really dropped. How can they ask me to be the graduation speaker when I just graduated from Mac a few years ago? And then it dawned on me, I've been gone from this place for 19 years. I'm the old guy now. But it feels like I left here just yesterday. So let me thank you, President Rosenberg, for your kind invitation, and for restoring my faith that email from the other side of the world can still be trusted. And thanks for making me feel like the old guy. Let me also thank all the trustees, faculty, and staff who make Macalester such a special place. I'm eternally grateful for the nurturing and challenging environment that you create. It's this environment that prepared me so well for the world that I would enter. To the class of 2018, let me say congratulations. You've made it to the end. All those late nights, eating Papa John's pizza, those wonderfully mild Minnesota winters, those end-of-term papers, that trauma of seeing naked people streaking, those pesky, demanding professors, those amazing friendships, those heartbreaks, and most importantly, those memories. You stuck it out to the end, despite the annoying bagpipes outside of your window as you're trying to sleep. Today, class of 2018, I'd like to share 3 stories with you. Each story is linked to a wish that I have for you at this remarkable stage of your life. The first story is about making choices. I was born in Ghana, but grew up all over Africa and finished my high school years in Zimbabwe. I knew that the best universities in the world were in the United States, so I decided to apply to colleges in the US. But my family came from a middle-class background. Now, middle class in Africa doesn't mean the same as it means here. There's no white picket fence, no 2-car garage, no family dog. It simply means both your parents are employed, and you have a roof over your head, and 3 meals a day. So my parents said that they could afford to pay only $2,500 a year for me to go to college. So I bought the college handbook and wrote to every single university that listed their fees as $2,500 or less. I literally wrote to 200 universities and colleges. Back in those days, there was no internet. So you would write and ask for more information, and 4 weeks later, an envelope would arrive. I ended up writing to state schools like the University of Oklahoma. And when I'd receive the information, it would say, oh, you know the $2,000 that you saw in the college handbook? That's for in-state American students. For international students, it's $25,000. And we don't give financial aid. Letter after letter came like that. Eventually, I figured out that there was a small group of colleges, mostly the Ivy Leagues and the top 50 liberal arts colleges, that gave international students financial aid. I applied to 6 of them, got admitted to 5, and got enough financial aid to attend 3. Macalester College, University of Chicago, and Vassar College. After this arduous process, it now came time to choose. Everyone I asked for advice, from the school counselors to family members to representatives of the US Embassy, told me to choose University of Chicago or Vassar College. Those 2 schools had better rankings on the US News and World Report than Macalester did. The University of Chicago even sent me a letter telling me how lucky I was to have been admitted into a university that had 50 Nobel Prize winners on its faculty. In contrast, Macalester sent me a note telling me how lucky they were to have admitted someone like me. Jim Crowder, the director of international admissions, called me personally to congratulate me. Now, as I made my decision, I reflected on what my values were. What really mattered to me? Did I simply want prestige? Or did I want to go to a place that also wanted me? And where I would really feel at home, I realized it was the latter. If I was going to go to the other side of the world, I should go to a place where I know that I would really matter and where I'd really be taken care of. So I chose Mac. Looking back, it was absolutely the best decision. The mentorship and friendship with the faculty that were fully dedicated to teaching, the small but diverse community of students, was exactly what I needed to flourish. The point is this, class of 2018. When it comes to making the really big decisions in your life, many will try to impose their dreams on you. Many will try to impose their wishes on you. Resist the temptation to do what others want you to do. It's your life, not somebody else's. And you will live with the consequence of these decisions for the rest of your life. Speaking of decisions, a former professor of mine, John Morgridge, once shared that there are 5 big decisions that you make in life. The first is which college you go to. The second is your first job right after college. The third is the career you settle into, which often is different from the first job after college. The fourth is who you marry. And the fifth is where you live. You've already made the first big decision in coming to Mac. So you should pat yourselves on the back for having made the right decision, for at least gotten that first decision right. Now, many of you have probably made the second decision already. Some of you, I'm sure, have accepted your jobs. Now you have 3 more left to make. Your long-term career, who you'll marry, maybe you met someone here, and where you live. So as you make them, my wish to you is that you truly reflect on your values. Ask yourself, what really matters to you? Live life on your own terms and be guided by your deepest values as you make those key decisions. You won't regret it. The second story is about purpose. When I first arrived at Macalester, my first reaction was, who are these people? There were weird people with green and blue hair and nose rings, terrible fashion sense. I'd never met a group of people who were so quirky. But everyone had one thing in common: passion. Everyone cared. They cared immensely about social injustice, world peace, the environment, those less fortunate, and every other cause under the sun. One of my most vivid memories was when a group of students invaded the president's office and camped there for several weeks to protest the fact that Macalester's athletic gear was being manufactured in sweatshops. The President McPherson at the time couldn't get into his office for weeks. Eventually, the university put pressure on Nike and other manufacturers to change their practices. And the president was able to move back into his office. So President Rosenberg, I think you've had it easy. Macalester had a profound impact on me. It's really where I learned to care. It's where I learned what it means to be a leader. This passion for service that infected me. I got involved in community service, became an RA, a PA, and so many other activities. In my final year, I wrote an honors thesis looking at the changes that were taking place in Africa. and the fact that it was getting more prosperous and finally had the chance to become peaceful. I knew that I had to go back and play a role in making that change happen. It was that thesis that sowed the seed for what I would later go on to do, using education as a means of developing Africa's future leaders. I did this first by launching the African Leadership Academy, the African Leadership Network, and now the African Leadership University. These institutions have already developed thousands of leaders. The one unique aspect of African Leadership University is that we're getting rid of all majors. Instead, we ask our students to declare a mission for their lives and to structure their learning not around predetermined academic majors, disciplines, but around big problems that they want to solve. These problems could be in healthcare, climate change, governance, education, gender inequality, and so forth. They then design their own tailored learning experiences around solving these problems. And we're rolling out these universities to develop 3 million passionate problem solvers who would transform Africa. Now, when I look back on why I shaped the university this way, it comes all the way back to Macalester. Mac showed me that those of us who are privileged enough to get education, to be healthy, and to have lived to this age, should not be solving small problems. We should be solving big problems for the world. And that's the only way that we can justify our privilege. So as you leave here, class of 2018, my wish for you is that you continue to love as much as you've loved at Mac. Fight as much as you fought at Mac. Choose to be bothered. Continue to give a damn about the world and its challenges. You received an academic major here, and now it's time to devote your life towards a mission. The third story is about horizons. It starts just after I finished my MBA at Stanford. Now, during the MBA, I'd written the business plan for the African Leadership Academy. Now, to kick off the project, I raised seed funding from a few friends and family. But within a few months, that money ran out. And for 2 years, I had no salary. I survived by sleeping on people's couches and living in their spare rooms. And I made sure that I scheduled a meeting at breakfast, a meeting at lunch, and a meeting at dinner. Usually the person I'd be dining with would offer to pay for the meal since they saw me as the starving entrepreneur. And then, of course, I'd make a fake protest. Really? No, you don't have to. If you insist. One of my most vivid memories at the time was when I went to New York on a fundraising trip. I took the train from downtown Manhattan across the river to New Jersey to meet a potential donor. The meeting didn't go so well. I didn't get the money. It was now time to go back to the other side of the river. But there was one problem. I didn't have enough money to take the train to the other side. I remember looking across the river to the skyscrapers on Wall Street and imagining my classmates from Stanford Business School who were working there, earning hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I didn't even have train fare to go across the river. To this day, I still don't know how I got back. They say trauma does that to you, just wipes out things from your memory. Standing on the other side of the river that day, with no train fare, I could not have imagined that I would go on to raise $200 million just 12 years later, to launch 6 ventures, to collectively employ 500 people, and establish an unconventional university system that is poised to develop 3 million leaders for Africa. The point of the story is this: play the long game. Bill Gates once said, most people overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. As you leave here today, my wish for you is to have perseverance. Your journey is going to be tumultuous. You're going to go up and down. There'll be many times when you'll feel like giving up. Things won't be easy always, but that's the point. Do hard things and stick with them until you succeed. Play the long game and you'll succeed beyond your wildest dreams. In closing, let me leave you with one final thought. You graduate at a very interesting time, a time when technology is taking over the world. Many studies show that over half of jobs that exist today may be eliminated by automation in the coming decades. And there's a massive shortage of computer and data scientists. Everyone is saying the world needs more and more data scientists and engineers. So you may be wondering, does this $280,000 degree that I just got from Macalester in liberal arts, does this still matter in the world of artificial intelligence and robotics? Well, just 2 weeks ago, it became clear to me why this matters. I was at a dinner in Silicon Valley, and I sat at a table with some of the most prominent people in technology. One guy told me how he had visited Ghana 25 years ago, and he proceeded to tell me about the immense poverty he had seen in a small village that he had been to. And he then said, I know that you came from that background, and I'm so sorry for the difficulties that you've had in your life. First of all, I didn't come from that village. And while I didn't come from wealth, my life definitely wasn't that bad. It definitely wasn't as bad as he'd imagined it would be. Not everyone in Africa is starving and lacks education. On the contrary, we're building education institutions of the future and creating technologies that will leapfrog some of the technologies that you even see here. Did you know that mobile money, that thing, Apple Pay, that you take for granted, was first developed in Africa? Secondly, that village that he was talking about probably today has mobile phones and has moved on from where he thought about it was. Then the other person at the table asked me how I'd learned to speak English so well. He said, where were you educated? I just smiled. He didn't know that I'd gone to a great school in the Midwest called Macalester. And then I'd subsequently graduated in the top 10% of my class at Stanford Business School. Sitting at that table made me realize that many of the people who are coding the algorithms, who will determine the biases and the decision-making of robots, have no clue about the world. So in the era of artificial intelligence, I believe that those who will be intelligent in the future are those who have traits that computers cannot easily copy. Traits like curiosity, like humility, like passion, like a sense of fairness, a mission for a higher purpose, global awareness. The good news is that this is exactly what Mac has prepared you to do. So resist the temptation to go with the herd. Don't join a coding boot camp. Instead, use your ability to make the right choices, your sense of mission, and your global perspective to help ensure that as computers take over the world, that we won't lose our soul. The world has never needed Mac grads more than it does today. Thank you.